Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday Excerpts. I'm Toni Shiloh, and I will be reading from my novel, Buying Love. It's my first book in the Maple Run series. It's one series I really adore, mostly because the maple pit and maple bacon recipes that are inside. But I thought I'd kick off in the first chapter and just read a little bit and convince you to buy the book. Again, it's Buying Love, and I'll be reading from chapter 1. Nina Warrington checked her watch for the umpteenth time. He was late. On the one hand, she was thankful. On the other, she was annoyed. Who makes an appointment and shows up late? Granted, living in the D.C. metro area guaranteed multiple opportunities to be late, but she made an effort to arrive on time to any appointment. Too bad the unknown Mr. Williams didn't hold the same virtue. She sighed. Had she acted prematurely? Putting an ad for a husband was a little archaic, but she believed it would get the job done. However, none of the previous candidates had panned out. One man had been released from prison a couple of months ago. Another had answered her ad with the hope of moving out of his mother's place. Still another had answered her ad because the voices in his head had prompted him to. She shook her head. Maybe the fact that Mr. Williams was missing was God showing her he wasn't the one. Maybe he was prematurely balding or had the personality of wilted lettuce. Of course, she had prayed that God would send her the right man, but there was no guarantee he would acquiesce to her request. She tapped her pen on the table and looked around the room. The coffee shop was filled with D.C. metropolitans ready to embrace the autumn air. It was a gorgeous day with a light breeze and the preferred 70s temperature. Was it possible that Mr. Williams was already here and hiding behind a coffee mug or laptop to secretly get a first impression without her noticing? She peeked around the shop, but she was only one alone. She glanced at her watch again. He was only 5 minutes late. Maybe he took the metro and it was running behind. On the other hand, maybe he drove and couldn't find a parking spot. The sound of her pen hitting the table seemed to mark the seconds. She knew this part of D.C. wasn't filled with ample parking, but she wasn't ready to excuse him yet. Her place was a block away and she had made the journey in no time. She glanced down at her aqua journal to review her notes about the man in question. He had filled out the questionnaire she had sent when he had contacted her about the ad. She knew he was a few years older than herself and lived in Loudoun County, a suburb in Northern Virginia. Coming from that direction, he probably was stuck in traffic. She really wasn't that obsessed with time. However, he was the third candidate she planned on meeting face-to-face. Third time was a charm, right? If so, why wasn't he here? Why hadn't Prince Charming swept her off her feet? Shouldn't she be the one making him wait? She glanced up at the tinkle of the door chime. She inhaled sharply. In strode a man wearing a sweater that matched the color of her notebook, a white collared shirt peeking above his collar and hanging past the sweater's edge. His maple brown sugar skin reminded her of her favorite body scrub. He was gorgeous. She shifted in her seat, wondering if he was her missing appointment. Mr. Williams had agreed to bring a white rose so that she could identify him. However, the bookshelf by the door hid his hands. The man scanned the crowd, then brought his hands up and took a sniff of the aforementioned flower. It was him. She wanted to grin, but held back. She didn't want to get her hopes up. All the other candidates had been so dismal that her dreams had begun to wane. She really wanted to meet her next life goal of having a family, but a husband was imperative. If Mr. Williams didn't pan out, what was she going to do? Her ex-boyfriend had gleefully dumped her a few months ago. She shook her head to dislodge the thought. She didn't have time to entertain it. Instead, she stood up and waved a hand, hoping to catch the man's attention. He turned and captured her gaze. She gulped. The electricity that hummed in the air had to be her imagination. He gave a brief smile and walked her way. She clasped her hands, hoping to present a confident facade and hide the one that was shaking in her gray suede ankle boots. He stopped at the Bristol-style table and cleared his throat. "Are you Nina Warrington?" So that's it, guys. Just the first couple of pages in Buying Love, the first book in the Maple Run series. Please give it a shot if you haven't. If you have read it, tell me what your favorite part is in the comments. And for those of you who haven't read it, you might want to skip the comments for spoilers. Thanks again for joining me for Wednesday Excerpts, guys. Bye.